Come, hold my hand. Let's go on an adventure. The nectar of the gods. Hey, hi. Welcome to Nomadic Adventures. I'm your host, Effy McMorris, and I'm going to take you on an adventure. Today's adventure is going to be a little bit about Ryan and I and coming into parenthood and our decision to sort of travel and what that means, sort of what services we frequent to do that traveling. And so here we go. Ryan and I met in 2017 in New Jersey, where our parents live, and we're able to sort of cross paths and fall in love and have some pretty dope adventures. And within our first year of meeting and dating, we had lived together essentially in almost three different states, because Ryan worked in Washington, D.C. We met in New Jersey. Then he got a job in Washington, D.C. So he moved to D.C. And then I moved to Maryland, literally on the outskirts of D.C. a few months after that. And then he moved to Maryland, and then we went to Ireland. And then after that, we continued to travel just like a ton. And both of us had traveled a bit prior to, I would say Ryan a lot more than myself. And so we definitely very early on agreed that traveling was important to both of us, and just continuously moving and meeting new people, and maybe not even necessarily moving, but creating new friendships and going out and just finding ways to be part of the community and volunteering. And literally, if our jobs put on events, we would both go, and just trying to in any way, shape, or form get involved with the people around us and learn and grow. But I think we wound up living in the DC, Maryland area for about 2 years. And then Ryan got a job in Philly. And so we moved to Philadelphia. I had gone to college there. And so there was, a lot of memories that I had of Philly. And so I had this very strong, steadfast desire to not, all I could remember was my 20s in Philly, and didn't give any thought to that a place could be two places, or that a person could change and have different wants and whatever. And so I thought oh, Philly's not going to be for us, but okay, let's go. You got this job. Here we go. And I think that we fell in love. I think part of it was building a home together. And then obviously in 2020, things sort of changed, and we were confined to this house. And so we really spent time making it a place that the two of us could feel comfortable, do it together. And we built a place of love there. And we had planned to get married in 2020. And so a number of things stood in our way, and probably a large amount of it was like us dragging our feet, hoping that something would change. And so we didn't wind up getting to have like the wedding that we had planned. But so like last minute, small aside, there was a bar that we would frequent when we lived in Philly called The Barn. Amazing. Like every bartender, so many of the people we loved. But yeah, we really, really like loved going there, loved playing pool there. Ryan proposed there with a pizza from the pizzeria around the corner called Dock Street Brewery. It is no longer there, but they are still very much a place, and I highly recommend you go there because pizza is dope. And so we, I think like a week before, reached out to the pizza place and we were like, hey, we know that you have like that like garage where it kind of opens up and there's like airflow, and can we just sort of get married there? And they were like, yep. And so we basically set up a barrel. And Ryan's uncle married us, and we wrote like our own vows, and essentially just had like a pizza party at a brewery in our fanciest clothes with a handful of friends and family that could be there in the safest like capacity that anybody was willing to take at that point. So we had a lovely wedding, and I think we both like can look back at it and just remember like so much love in a time that felt so like scary and unsure. And so I also want to talk a little bit about pre-wedding, post-wedding, during COVID times for two people who enjoy traveling so much, to essentially be like stuck in our house. It didn't work for us. It didn't work well. So, Ryan for sure is a researcher. I have a chronic illness. And so I spoke with my doctors, and Ryan did his own research, and we got to a point where we were like comfortable being like in the car and able to maybe like use a restroom at a public place, should we have to. And so we started getting in the car at night, like after work on a Friday maybe, or like a holiday weekend or whatever. And we would just take left and rights and lefts. And like someone would just say left, right. And we would drive and we would drive and we would drive and we would drive until we were like so unbelievably lost. And then we would put the GPS on and we would get home. Or we'd keep getting lost and we'd look at how far we are from home and be like, oh wow, we're only like 40 minutes from the house. Let's keep getting lost. And there would be nights that we wouldn't come home until like 4 or 5 in the morning. Like it was absolutely insane. We would drive all night, because it felt like a way to explore and see things while staying safe, and making like conscious choices to keep other people safe. Yeah. So we get married, like love story, la la la, and decide that like we feel like we're ready to try and become parents. And despite the uncertainty of the world, we are like, yep, we're going to do that. And then it did not happen as easily as it had happened in the past for myself. I am like pro-choice. I have had other pregnancies before Poppy and was able to make other choices at that time that worked best for my life. And now I am able to be like the best parent I can be to Poppy because I made those like difficult choices in the past. And so I think that is like where I get my level of like intentional parenting, because I am like choosing to be her parent. I am choosing to guide her in this world. And I think it's important that that both Ryan and I had that choice to make. And that we could be ready to take on that responsibility. So we make that choice, we have that conversation, and we start like, doing all the tips and tricks off, Instagram and TikTok that we saw about like, put your legs up, don't do it in the butt, things like that I was like, oh, right. Okay. So, I was really into my job. I then found a job at like this tech company that I really believed in, and I went to work for them, and they were headquartered in North Carolina. So upon taking the job, Brian and I were like, yeah, like let's be closer to the headquarters. Like that just makes sense. And so we like moved down there, and like from the day we like found out to like the day I was starting, we had to move. Like I guess we didn't have to move, but we like moved within like 5 weeks or so, maybe less than that. And like we just started packing things up, and we were like, yep, here we go. Then we get to North Carolina, and we're moving and we're grooving and we're liking it, and like we're meeting friends and we're feeling it. And then we go on vacation with our friends for my good friend's birthday. And we like go to Atlanta, and we have the fucking dopest time, right? We have so much fun. I remember how much fun we had on that trip, and I can like look back and remember like key moments of being like, oh yeah, that was such a good trip. Just like being surrounded with the people that you love, and then additionally being in a place exploring new things. It was so good. So we do that trip. Then we go somewhere in Virginia to kind of do like a family type staycation where like my mom and my siblings and our partners, like we all stayed in this like big house with our dogs, and there was like a pool, and whatever. We did this like vacation in Macungie. No, it wasn't Macungie. McGaysville. I think it was McGaysville. Oh man, I hear my kid crying. I think I have to go. So we'll pick back up on that, I guess. Okay, so we moved to North Carolina. We continue to go on some adventures, and then on Father's Day of 2023, we find out, no, that's not possible. That's actually impossible. So, a Father's Day 2022, we find out that we are pregnant. I was like so excited, so nervous. But like Ryan and I had a plan to be in to be in Ireland, ideally, when we gave birth. That was our goal. And we had taken a lot of steps to get there, and we had intention of going there, and then found out that there were actually some things that we just couldn't make happen. And so we made the choice to stay in the US. And it was like a hard choice. But we did it. And then we traveled through Europe a bit for like the Thanksgiving-ish time, when I was like 8 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant, or whatever. Six months pregnant. I felt way bigger. I felt way worse. But it was like cold, and we were in like, I forget even where we went. Whatever. Okay. So we go to a bunch of places. We're traveling through Europe. I'm pregnant, and I'm like we wore masks so much. I was like, I stayed in the hotel a ton because of like how pregnant I was, and like how high my anxiety was about being out and being pregnant and like possibly getting sick. And then Ryan gets COVID, and we spend like the holidays apart. And then in January, I wind up getting sick. And I'm like super sick. And then February rolls around, and we are in New Jersey, and we're like, okay, Ryan's parents have a house in New Jersey. And so we move into like their basement. And Ryan is kind of still like going back and forth, to North Carolina, because like our stuff is there, and he has to move all of that back. And there was just like so much. And, giving birth was really shitty. I think I probably will talk about it a bit more on like a later episode, but I don't think this is the time. I don't feel ready, I think, for that yet. But we got to experience so much traveling before we became parents. And then once we became parents, I guess I had such a like idea in my mind of what type of parent I was going to be. And like we had to make a lot of choices, and we had to change and like adapt a lot in the first few months. And then in like the summer of 2023, Poppy's like a few months old, we decide we're going to travel. I definitely talk more about that on a later episode. Our first jump out there into the big traveling world as a family. We start traveling as a family of 3. Tilly stays with my mom, and then we realize like, okay, I think we can do this. And like, then we start bringing Tilly, and we start traveling, and like we continuously have New Jersey to sort of like fall back on. And we do these like stints of traveling, then coming back, traveling, then coming back. And then finally at the end of 2023, we were like, okay, like we're going to hit the road, and we're going to go, and we're going to go, and we're going to go, and we're going to go. And like, we're going to figure out where in the US could feel like home, what could feel right. And so now we've been traveling for about 6 months, like without the safety net of, and like, not to say without the safety net of our parents' home, because like, I think we both have so many safe places, and like, we have never had like a moment where we'd have been like unhoused and like had to worry about where we were gonna put a roof over our head. And I think that is like home, and have a place to store like some of the things that are important to us, and like huge shout out to Nan and Doug, because one, they gave us the ability to like save money while we were staying with them, which was like massive. The support of like being additional caretakers for Poppy was like unbelievable. Being nearby to all of our like friends and family for those first big moments, like what they gave us is like in like there's no way to count it. There's a word for that I can't think of. Like it's immeasurable. Like they gave us so much, and like and have throughout our entire relationship, and I see how they love their children and how they care for their kids, and so lucky to be like considered a child and be given like love and safety that they provide, and it's really dope. So shout out them. So great. We hit the road in 2024. So early 2024. We get all four of us, and we bought like not shitty, but shitty-esque, roof rack type thing. Like that like goes into the door handles. So, you don't actually like need a roof rack, but it can like hold your luggage or whatever on the roof of your car. So, I think we paid $20 for it. We got it off Facebook Marketplace. So like also big shout out to that person. And we, so up to this point, we had done a bunch of traveling. We had kind of figured out what companies work for us. So like, I mean, I think everybody knows of like Airbnb and Vrbo, and one of the ones that we use as like traveling professionals who sometimes need a like longer stay in a place or some like more room. We use something called Furnished Finder, and it allows us to find like actual people's maybe houses who are on vacation. You talk like directly with those people usually. And I will say the like app is not great, and the website is also not that great. And like the way their communication system goes, I think they need like a better CRM and like app, and I think it for sure has some faulty aspects, but for what we're using it for, and the purpose of it is also to help traveling nurses and traveling professionals, and I think what it provides for people is something that Airbnb sort of used to provide before it just essentially became like a hotel sort of thing. And then our biggest thing that we use, and people are constantly like surprised by it, is something called landings. So you can go to hellolanding.com. And if you use our like referral code, which I believe is, I think it's Ryan _ D as in dog, F as in Frank, M as in maybe. But yeah, Ryan _ DFM, I believe is the like referral code. So we don't get paid by them. Like we actually use this service. I'll be honest, I don't even know what that like referral code gets you or what it even gets us. I should probably find that out at some point, but it's a great service. So I guess I'm not great at explaining it, but I'm going to do my best. So if you've ever lived in like one of those quote unquote luxury apartment buildings, it's an apartment building with like a bunch of units. And then they have a ton of communal spaces, and sometimes they're furnished, so people can kind of like go and do a walkthrough and see what the place is before they rent for 12 months or 2 years or 6 months or whatever the leasing office offers. What this company does is essentially like buys a couple units in some of these apartment buildings. I don't know the ins and outs of it. but then they go in and they like furnish it, and they have like one of those like, use your phone to unlock or key fob to unlock. They set up internet. They give you like everything you need kind of to get started. So like all of the units we stay in, because we have cloth diapers, it is vital to our survival to have an in-unit washer dryer system. So all the units that we stay in always have a washer dryer system, and they kind of like come with a few pods, a dishwasher, a full-size refrigerator, like full kitchen. Depending on what city we're in, we kind of get a little more bang for our buck. So we pay like a monthly rate, and then we can get access to any of the available units. But we use a like service by Hello Landing called Standby. And what that means is we pay less than this apartment would normally go for. And if someone comes here and says like, hey, I want to pay full price for that apartment, or I want to rent that apartment for 6 months or a year or whatever, we don't have a long-term lease. So they are able to, quote unquote, kick us out. And everyone's like, oh my God, what do you mean you get kicked out? Yeah. Sometimes it's really hard. When we were on our way to the place we are now, we got kicked out before we even arrived. And that is not the first time that has happened. It has happened like a number of times. Like we're like, oh, okay, we're going to go to Albuquerque or, fucking whatever. And we are like, okay, we're leaving on Tuesday. So we're leaving at night. We need to be there like Tuesday night. We're going to get in at like 11 o'clock at night or something, because we can't leave until 5:30 because Ryan is working, and then we have to feed Poppy while we're like on the road, which means we have to stop. And if we have the dog, that's like a whole thing. And then we're not getting to like the place we're going. Even if we're going like 2 hours, it's insane. It can take us like 5 or 6, sometimes more. So we will hop in the car and drive to the next place. Now people are like, oh my gosh, you get kicked out. Like, what is that like? How do you pack so quickly? Like, you must have no stuff. So they give you 3 days. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the like 3-day criteria is. So I guess if they like let you know on Friday, you have to like be out by Monday at like 11 or 10 or something. But typically we make it so that we like travel our furthest distances on the weekend. When you get kicked out, you have 3 days to leave. And then if you leave, you can move to one of the other locations. So we're able to like pull up a map and be like, okay, this is where we are. This is where we can get to. Now I will say, like, they do not have locations everywhere. So we have been trying to get to certain parts of the country, and they just like don't have locations there, or they're constantly sold out, or like whatever it may be. And so some cities are waitlisted, some cities they just don't have locations there. And like probably because like the standby option is not feasible in some of those cities. Like it's just not worth it for them. They're paying, maybe $2,000 and we're paying $1,500. And so like they're losing money on that. And why would they want to do that? They are a business. So, I personally am like such a fan of the whole concept. I think it's so cool. I love it. It allows us to travel like we do, with, some control. There's another episode called Stuff where I talk about how we have to sort of do that 3-day flip, and how we pack our stuff up, and how we get it into the car and on the road, and what it's like doing that with a person who is working full time, which typically means that like we are maybe just going to a library or to a Starbucks so that like Ryan can work until his day is over. Or it means that we are, trying to make it work with Poppy's nap times if we're traveling on like a weekend, or if it's a short trip, then it's like, okay, well then we have to stick around. We're checking out at 10, but we have to stick around till 12:30 because that's when her nap time is. And so we have to figure out something to do with both girls, so there are it's planning. It's constant planning. Like Ryan and I both have to be able to like creatively think of how we are going to make things work. And then we have to be willing to like adapt on the fly and change our flow and make different decisions. Right before we got to the place where we are now, we had been house sitting. We had some events to go to in New Jersey. And so we were able to house sit for a family friend of Ryan's. And they have this great house in New Jersey. And it was so lovely to be able to like have friends and see people and all of that. But like the itching to like get on the road and see something different was high. So we had this plan to like get to Chicago, and we're like, okay, we're going to Chicago. And so we tell everybody like, that's our plan. We're going to Chicago. And they're like, cool. Perfect. We'll come visit you in Chicago. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe. How are we going to get to Chicago? Okay, so we'll get there by way of Pittsburgh and then drive up. But then Pittsburgh there's no open landing. So I'm like, okay, and then I'm looking on Furnished Finder. I'm looking on Facebook Marketplace for like, just to see if there's any furnished rentals. We use Zillow. We use apartments.com. Like we use all of it. We search, we sit there on the computer and we like just continuously type in different places and move the cursor of the map to see like, one, where we want to go. Two, if we can afford to go there, and like, three, if it makes sense in like the big goal of things. So like right now we are trying to get up to Chicago. So we're doing our best to make ourselves west and north from where we are. And so our plan initially was to head to Detroit. And I think 2 days before we were heading to Detroit, so we had like told people, they were like, okay, see you in Detroit. And we were like, there's no way Detroit's going to get booked. Like there was like 15 places available. We were so like packing up the car, and then we got the, email, Detroit gets booked. So I think the day before we left, we had a bunch of family come and visit, and everyone's kind of saying goodbye, and they're like, okay, so like, where are you going? And we're literally like, we don't know. We will wake up tomorrow morning and figure it out. Like, and I get that concept is terrifying for people. How we live our lives is not like typically not normal. This is not how people like want to live their lives. I get that. It is how we like to live our lives, and we are so happy and like we are enjoying it so much. And it has allowed us to become like such creative thinkers and so willing to go with the flow. And it has expanded our friend group and our family and like our loved ones. I think what we get from traveling like this is for sure worth like the effort and the struggles and like the hardships of it. I know there is another episode that you guys can totally tune in and listen to where we talk about money and like what that is like. A lot of people are like, we can't afford to travel all the time. Like, lucky you get to travel and just like be a parent. And that's true. Like, yes, we are so lucky. While we have worked hard for this and we have planned and we continuously work hard for it, we also are very lucky. We are lucky enough to have friends that we're allowed to stay with, that we are able to stay with, that we want to and they want us to. We have a family that has supported us and helped us financially, emotionally, like literally with having a roof over our head, with childcare, with food. Like, we are so loved and blessed and lucky and all of the words. And so that is a huge part of why we are able to live the way that we can, and we do, and we choose to. And it works for us right now. And I think Ryan and I and Poppy and Tilly, maybe not as much Tilly, we've all really become invigorated by the challenge and the excitement of changing our scenery and learning new things and exploring and finding new cities and figuring out what the US has to offer. Like, it's everything's so expensive right now. So again, check out the episode on money. It's a good one because, like, the idea of buying a house and owning land and never moving, and it just feels daunting, I think. And like, it doesn't work for our family at this moment, but that's not to say in the future it won't. So or that it's not a great way to have it work for your family. Like, I am so keen on you doing your best to make it in this crazy world as a parent the best way you can. My hope and goal is that by sharing my story, you are able to appreciate other people's ways of living, as well as maybe gain some confidence to get out there and try something that you're terrified to do. Like, we for sure were scared getting in a car with our family. And like, so many people often are like, what is nomadic parenting? What does that mean? And essentially it means that we're on the go. Like, we don't have a for sure plan of where we are going to be next month. We do not have a plan of where we're going to be next week. Like, we don't know. And we figure it out day by day. And we do that while trying to be like the best parents we can and do our best to maintain relationships the best that we can. We are big fans of FaceTime. We are big fans of like recording videos. Like, send us a recorded video of you reading a book. Like, send us a video of you hanging out in your house, like making food. Like, that is the stuff that like Poppy doesn't get to witness when she's like with people and stuff. I don't get to witness because we're like away from people. And like, sometimes that's like, I just want to be on FaceTime next to you, like talking about what we did today. I think it's really easy to continue to stay connected to the people in your life. It just requires like a little bit of effort. We're gifted so much technology. And like, I think we like, the more we use it, the better. And like, use it to your advantage, use it to see the world, use it to expand your mind, use it to expand your community, and like, just have a conversation. Let's talk about it, like, yeah. So hopefully I shared a little bit more about us, who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and you'll tune in again next week to find out a little bit more. All right, bye. You can find Nomadic Adventures wherever you get your podcasts, and if for some reason you can't, let me know and I will get that podcast into your podcast servicing app. Tune in every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Check Patreon, hit up Instagram, go to all those places and engage. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other. If you want to be on a podcast and you're like, hey, I'm a parent and I traveled somewhere and I feel like I could talk about that, let me know. Let's talk about it.